Humanity destroyed. Vec threat unstoppable. Mission failed.
We couldn't stop them this time. But best of all, time is on our side.
Hi there, I'm Scotty Forsyth, professional voice actor and pop culture enthusiast. Today we're talking about a video game I'm absolutely in love with. Now that it's getting a big re-release, Into the Breach is here for another mission. I'll be going over how Into the Breach helped my 2020 quarantine time, how I think it's one of the most perfectly designed games ever, and why I think it's best of all. But first, let's take a quick break and get right back to the show. So Into the Breach is the second game from Subset Games, an independent studio created by Justin Ma and Matthew Davis. You probably know their work from the game FTL, Faster Than Light. It's showed up on a lot of different consoles, super popular. Into the Breach is their follow-up to that. It's a strategy game, so visualize something similar to chess. You have a board with a lot of different little pieces. But these pieces are a team of mechs, so like big robots that people pilot. And your goal is protect the planet from these giant bugs that are attacking from like beneath the earth that are called the Vec. So if you're familiar with Pacific Rim or even Power Rangers with the Megazords and everything, kind of a similar vibe. You got big robots fighting big monsters. And the main goal was to protect the planet. You go to these 4 specific islands, or kind of like 4 different worlds, and you were just trying to make sure that you were defeating the enemies in these areas. But you're not only doing that, you're also managing your team by increasing their power, finding items that help upgrade your mechs, finding pilots that help that are right for your mech. Maybe a pilot has a specific ability that works really well with the specific robot that you have. And of course, you're trying to protect them and make sure that your little team doesn't get killed. But on top of that, you are truly managing the lives of the civilians in these areas. You have to protect the cities that you're fighting around, because if they're damaged, not only are innocent lives lost, which is, morally bad, but 2, in a gameplay aspect, you're losing grid power. So grid power kind of works as like these little penalty, like little like lives, think of it like that. And that keeps your mechs running. So if the power is out and you lose all of your grid power, the game's over. Your mechs don't work and you have to start from the beginning again. Now, game overs are kind of expected. This game is challenging. Obviously, if I'm covering it on Best of All, I think it's challenging enough for a beginner or someone to get into the game without being too hard. But probably out of every video game that I've talked about so far, this is probably the hardest one. But these game overs are so interesting and rewarding because it's baked into the story. The whole premise of this game is that this organization, they can travel through time. So they are specifically traveling in time to stop the Vec from destroying the world. So when you get a game over, the characters who survive literally go back in time, and then you have to pick one of them to start your new run with. Like, it's really, really clever. And the different pilots have different personalities and they have different characteristics. There's one who's like a pretty like stoic scientist, who she gets like a shield that covers your mech on every turn, or when you start a little round, so that she's really useful because she can take more hits. Now there's even little things. I forget what that character's name is, but there is a character who has a stutter, and it's so cool because this is all like text-based. You have to read a bunch of different stuff. It's actually written by an outside person, because Justin Ma and Matthew Davis predominantly worked on the game, but the music was made by somebody different, and the writing was done by somebody different, or the script. And apparently they were a pretty big writer. Matthew Davis and Justin Ma were a big fan of them. They brought them onto this game. So these characters have really, really solid personalities, and it's exceptional writing to where it makes you kind of learn more about them. There's one guy who's like a real hotshot. There's a newer character that they just added that I'll talk about in a little bit. But he like truly believes that like Father Time is a deity and has chosen him to go back in time to do all of this. So he has the trait called like Chosen One. So if you reset a turn, so like if you feel like you messed up one of these rounds, every round you can completely reset your turn, or your previous turn, so that you can get a do-over. And so this guy like truly believes, and he's super devout, like this religious figure about the concept of time. It's incredibly creative. So if you're into a story, the main focus of this game is gameplay, but there is a solid story. There is a solid characters. There are, people that are memorable, so that when they do die in a particular run, like you feel sorrow. Because you're like, oh no, I didn't mean this character to get killed. Even though you know that they'll be back in a different time. They'll go back in time and save themselves, but it's still sad. There's still, you have attachment to these characters. So it's incredibly clever. It's so cool. And back in 2018, this game came out. It released for the PC, like Steam and maybe Mac. But then it was released on Switch later that year. I think it was like console exclusive. I think it's still a console exclusive. So I played the game. I enjoyed it. I was a big fan of FTL back in high school when it came out. I think it was around the time I was in high school. It's dating myself. But then in 2022, Subset Games announced that they had a partnership with Netflix and that the game was coming to mobile phones. That if you have a Netflix account, you can just log in and play this game for free. Which is something new that Netflix is trying to do with like video games, and to varying success. Some of these games are just kind of like, okay, that's a regular like run-of-the-mill phone game. Maybe not my favorite thing, but some people like it. But then they have really solid games like this, and there's a few others that I might talk about on another episode that like really surprised me. It shows that Netflix really wants to be known for gaming, which is something that they've kind of dabbled in a little bit. But with this new release of the game, Subset Games added a whole update called the Advanced Update, and they added a ton of new content. So there's more pilots like the Father Time religious guy that I mentioned. There's a ton of other ones that I haven't unlocked yet because you have to find them when you're playing the game. And then there's a new mechs that you can play, new enemies to fight, new like modes and missions. It's like there's a huge amount of updates to this game that really make it worthwhile. I can see if you're new, it would be a little overbearing, but or overwhelming, I should say, maybe a bit of both. But yeah, like if you're starting out this game fresh, watch some videos, watch some people play it, hear them talk about it, and then if you want to play it for yourself, just pick like the starting team, make sure you turn off some of the extra content, play it on easy, and just get a feel. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But I think that it's a really worthwhile game, and this is maybe something a little bit more complex than I would recommend on Best of All. My whole purpose of Best of All is showing a general audience something that they maybe have not played before and why specifically I like it. And, in 2020, chess.com became super popular just later or earlier this year. Wordle became incredibly popular. I still play Wordle every day. So I feel like the Into the Breach has enough little puzzle elements to make it interesting to people, especially now that it's on a mobile phone. I played a little bit of the mobile version. I predominantly played on my Switch. I've actually, before the new update, I had done everything there was to do in Into the Breach. So I'm a expert at the game now, which is strange because I don't typically get like that good at a video game. This game just clicked for me. It has enough elements to where there's these little puzzles. I couldn't find a quote on this, so I don't know if this is exactly true. But the game reads based off of what team you have, what pilots you have, what weapons you have, to make nearly every encounter that you have technically solvable. So it is like a puzzle game. It's a strategy because you have to, build your team and know what you do. But there is a puzzle to it of going like, how can I get rid of these bugs so that they don't hurt the city? And so there's some part of the game that you kind of have to unlearn traditional strategy elements. Like if you're playing chess or checkers, your main goal is to eliminate the enemy. That's your main goal. That's what you do. In this game, if you play it like that, you're going to run into some trouble because the main goal is to protect the city. And it's such a unique thought to a game because it's like it really amplifies heroism. Heroicness. You know what I mean. Of like these movies like Pacific Rim or Power Rangers, where it's like this team is the only way to save humanity. And it's like if they just let the cities be destroyed and be completely obliterated, then there's nothing left to save and their job has failed. Where like this game really amplifies like if all of the bugs are attacking your team, your robots, honestly, you're in a very good position because they're taking the focus off of the city, off of the civilians, because it's like you want the people who are left in this world to be safe. And it's such a unique way to play a game, and it really makes you feel like a true hero. So much of video games are a power fantasy to make you feel powerful and to make you feel like this most epic hero of legend, where in this time, like you get that, but you also get the sense that like you're doing good, and it's so cool. I love it. So like obviously the game is fun to play, and like it has a very high skill ceiling, so you can play as some of the little teams and enjoy it, play against some of the enemies and kind of learn. It's like, oh, okay, well, the Firefly shoots like a projectile, so let me have my big giant robot block that projectile, or maybe push it away from a city so it'll shoot into a mountain or something. Each enemy is very distinct and has a very straightforward way of like harming the board, so it's easy to learn. But then it's all about managing like how far can I push my mech's limits to where it's like just on the brink of breaking down to save like this city. Or there's times where it's like you have to make the call of like, do I let this building get destroyed so that it never happens again in this round? And it's heartbreaking because when it does, like you get little text bubbles of people yelling, or when you save somebody, you get text bubbles of like, they're saving us. Like it's so thematic. It is exactly like playing out one of these monster movies. And I mentioned that I played a little bit of it in 2018, but it wasn't until 2020 where the game really clicked for me. And that was because, I had a bunch of time to sit down and learn the game. And I guess it was part of the, hopelessness that I felt being locked down in quarantine. And like, I know Animal Crossing was a phenomenal game that helped me, socialize with people. But a little game like this really helped me feel like, I don't know, I was making an impact, even though like I know that I'm not, and this is a game, but at least you can get some satisfaction of like, well, let me have some form of escapism, which video games tend to do. I don't particularly see it that way, but as I get older, I understand why people like to escape for a little bit from the real world and be in a story or a scenario that makes them feel good. And in Into the Breach, I did that for myself. And I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm doing some good. And, it just makes me happy because I took the time to understand the game and I liked it enough to where it became challenging. But also, I felt like I was learning something new and constantly getting better at this sort of pseudo chess, pseudo puzzle game. Incredibly unique. So I hope that you would have the same path that I did while playing this game. But if not, like, totally take your time. And if you just want to see what this is about and play it for like a weekend, You easily could, and just slap it on easy and just see some cool robots fighting cool bugs. You know, I always praise easy mode and games being more approachable for newer players. And if you really like it, crank it up and kind of see what's under the hood of this game. Because there's a lot to like in it. This game is truly magical. I think design-wise, it's amazing. Moreover, this is a game that reinforces a theme and story about damage control and like truly protecting the Earth, and doing that in some ways of like self-sacrifice, because these pilots know that they're in a time. Everybody knows they're in a time loop, and they know that it's going like this is gonna be. They have to keep solving this problem and picking away at it until it's fully gone. And it's a very, very human story out of a game that looks like it's just meant to be pure strategy. And it can be that, but it can also be so much more. So like I mentioned earlier, you can play Into the Breach on computer, wherever you get your games, Steam, Epic Games, Good Old Games. It's all available on there. And then the Nintendo Switch, which was my favorite way to play it on. But I have it on Epic Games, I think, because it was free at one point. And then now, newly, you can play it on iOS or Android with a Netflix account. If you have a Netflix account, download it. Give it a shot. It literally costs you nothing if you have a Netflix account. So it's incredibly worth your time. And I'm so happy to see it continue. And here's hoping we get another big update or like a sequel to this game, because Into the Breach is phenomenal. So there's the What's What on Into the Breach Advanced Edition. If you have any other thoughts on time loops, because I love me a good time loop, feel free to email us at mail@ScottyMeLad.com. Your letter might even be read on the show. You can also stay up to date on all things Best of All on Twitter at ScottyMeLad. That's where I post funny retweets, bigger updates, stream schedules occasionally. I think I streamed this game once, animated it into a video. So yeah, Into the Breach has always been with me. And will always be with you if you follow me on Twitter and Subset Games on Twitter. You can also support us on Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/ScottyMeLad. And ScottyMeLad is Scotty, MELAD. And you can donate or give monthly. We have different tiers that can help you gain access to behind-the-scenes content, engage with the community, and help us reach goals to improve our podcast and other videos that we make. I hope you've taken something out of this episode and will give Into the Breach Advanced Edition a shot. But best of all, you were a listener. And we at ScottyMeLad, thank you. And that's my closer. Closing that time loop. Best of All was hosted and produced by Scott D. Forsyth, using the song Mia by Rolando Puchades from the album Canta as our intro and outro theme.